Thanks, Verma. Okay. All right. So the sixth principle that we took from the last show, AI is the exponent, two loops, context is finite. So I realized that in the feedback, many people kind of, I don't know, surprise is the right word or not. Many people mentioned that they did not realize that LLM has no memory is a real thing. And we discussed some strategies about how to deal with it. And in this one, I'm going to deal with some more. Okay, then from this point onwards, I was trying to analyze my own personal process to convert it into something that people can reuse. So that was onboard, plan, execute, verify. I think Murdul wrote in his feedback, OPEF. He said it's a very good way to remember it, OPEF. And I do it every day. Everything, even while building this PowerPoint, I've used the same approach, building this. Okay. Then the next concept was that state survives the session. So you engage with the AI and you disengage. If you do not make a specific effort to survive the knowledge gathered, then you'll have a problem. And so you have to do this. I mean, Ria just said she's not doing anything with plan.md or any MD files. And if you don't do it, you will lose that knowledge or whatever effort that you've made. So, and then I spoke about autonomy, that how much autonomy can you give to the bot? And my advice was start supervise, slowly graduate to more freedom. So I heard Ria say frustration. That's my hook here actually. So I feel each of you are using AI regularly in one way or the other for specifically development tasks. You may have tried building your own Claude.md cursor rules or you know Copilot rules or whatever is the equivalent. I'm sure you would have hit context overflow in some way or the other, that it would show that no more context left, or it'll start compacting, or it'll say start a new conversation. You also know what slash clear does. I think Vijay pointed out or some feedback that slash clear was very useful to them. And frustration typically comes from, you would have seen that the agent is cutting corners. It's making some wrong assumptions, and you must have seen surprise that you think you have told it, but it has forgotten, right? So the purpose of this current workshop is how do I go from supervised assistance to the agent working while I sleep? So agent working while I sleep is a very, very realizable pattern, and I'm definitely going to push to achieve there in this show. I have it in last few slides. Okay, so now, since you're using it, you're hitting walls, and so the point is that those walls are what are holding you back. Okay, so what are the walls? Let's just think what limitations you're facing. So the first one is, you would have all seen that the agent asks too many questions to you. Because of that, as a human, you can only supervise one agent at a time, and very soon you start feeling that your own attention is the bottleneck. It's not agent's speed. So you'll ask it to do something, it'll immediately point back, can I do this? Should I do this? Is this okay? And I feel that that doesn't gain any speed. It does some, it does not. Then another one is, once you start migrating to this plan.md approach, you'll see that the context fills up in minutes. Like with me, it happens. I set up a task with set up a phase or something with 15 tasks, and very soon it is gone. The whole context is filled up. So then it'll start compacting and it'll try to push further, but progress is lost. Some mistakes are made, and down the later tasks become poorer. So that's another wall. In my early days, I tried to set up with like 20, 30, 50 tasks without knowing all this. And my hope was that I'll go to bed, and next day when I wake up, everything would be done. Then I go back and analyze time. Roughly within 50 minutes of me going to sleep, something happens and it stops. So while I wanted it to work overnight, it was very difficult. And there is a reason for that. Okay. And then you will see that mistakes which have been solved. And likewise, I gave that idea of onboarding. Whenever you restart the bot, every time, it's a joke, basically 20 minutes of discovery before 5 minutes of actual work. So you have to steer it about knowing this, knowing that before. And This is not imaginary. I mean, I have faced it, and there is also this very interesting paper that Anthropic has published. It's 2026 Agentic Coding Trends. It came, I think, in October of 20, I don't know, January of 26, I think, some very recently. And they have written engineers can fully delegate only 20 to 0 to 20% of tasks. For other 80 to 100%, you still require active oversight. So what you are seeing, if you are seeing these patterns, you have actually hit the limit of supervised single agent workflow. So in rest of this, I'm I have thought through these four ways in which these walls can be broken. Okay, so knowledge, safety, autonomy, and scale. So knowledge is about memory that outlies session. So 3 slides on that. Then safety, 3 slides on that, or four. And then autonomy, because this idea of working while you sleep also requires close attention, because that's another wall, right? I want, PB want, and now Kashyap is there. There's a gentleman called Michael who also wants it. Customers are realizing this power. They're reading papers and YouTube videos and all that, and they are pushing us back. So scale, right? So each of them are orthogonal to each other. I mean, if you don't have one, the other may not make sense, right? Okay, so I'll still quickly just do time check. Okay, it's good, 6 minutes. Okay, so if you pay attention to the top right, I have this legend here, slides dedicated to knowledge, safety, autonomy, sales. So we are in the knowledge section. So all of you were with me, I think early days of LLM, people started talking about prompt engineering. That is an idea that you try to come up with various ways of writing prompts to get more value out of LLMs, right? Now with this agentic approach, it's no longer prompt engineering, it's now context engineering. So you can figure out that both prompt and context are basically a form of knowledge. Um, can can you please admit whoever is here? Okay. Okay. So there are so why it is context engineering is because you're trying to maneuver more and more, pack more and more knowledge into the same context. Context is this limit of 200,000 tokens, or more recently 500,000 tokens and 1 million tokens. So the question is not what should I type, it's what configuration of the context is most likely to generate the desired behavior. This is a very interesting statement. Think over it, that and I think very first lab will hit upon the idea of context. How do you maneuver context in a way that it can generate your outcome, right? So it's a resource optimization problem. So I'm suggesting, based on the literature survey, there are four strategies. Very simple. First is write, which means save the context outside the window. So we have discussed this idea of progress.md, architecture.md, learnings.md. In many cases, you make the bot only figure out what it learned, but emphasis is on the conversational context has something. You come up with strategies to write that out. So that's strategy number one. Strategy number two is select. So that means you have a lot of knowledge written down, but develop tools or techniques so that all of it is not part of your context, but just in time you onboard some portions. So what it means is agent does greps or globs to figure out what is needed, and only that blob, or I'll give you some example. That let's imagine a bot which knows nothing about Golang, but you have Golang syntax written somewhere. Your project has Golang as well as JavaScript. So the trick there is you set up your tooling in a way that it won't bother to know Golang, or come up with completely, let's say AK-lang. I develop a language, and there's no way that Anthropic or anybody could have ever trained it. So my only choice would be to develop a user manual and push it into my context. Now the problem is, if my user manual is 200 pages, then this bot will not make any progress. So select. So develop a technique or some strategy so that those things are just used just in time, and if possible, removed also. We discussed compress, compact, all of them is there. There's already, I think, all the tools have auto compaction that once you start hitting the context limit, they offer you some form of compaction. You can also do slash compact yourself, or you can even ask the bot to summarize what has been done so far, write to a file, and then slash clear. So this is strategy number 3. Okay. Strategy number 4 is isolate. So, I mean, we discussed it last time also, split work across different, so different ways of splitting. In this particular one, we'll discuss sub agents. I tested agent teams and they have bugs. So I have kind of said that at least right now it's not a good thing to use. And then simplest thing is separate sessions, which means use 2 different instances of the bot or 10 different instances of the bot, or in some cases use different computers, right? So isolate. If you split what needs to be done into small chunks, then chances of it filling is lower. So we think that it'll take time, but what I have observed is you start afresh. If you have too much gobbledygoo, like too much markdown files or too many code files that somehow you onboard during the onboarding phase, then you start with a, so that's why I've said agent onboards with half the context already filled. So you have 200,000 tokens, but 100,000 are already your own initial blurb. You'd work with it for 10 minutes, it is half full, rest of half is gone. At 20, it's almost done. And 30 minutes later, it's now compaction triggers. And now you are into context rot. Every additional token. So every new token that gets added, it degrades the attention budget, reducing recall accuracy. So you would have seen with full context, when the context becomes full, responses take minutes and chances of garbage responses keep increasing. Okay, so this brings up this idea that context window can be looked at in 2 ways: ephemeral and persistent. Ephemeral is which is in your current task and conversation. If it dies on, if you say slash clear or overflow, or you end the session, right? And then the second part is which is load on demand. Load on demand is written down files, plot.md. I'll discuss this interesting concept called auto memory that I also discovered last week only. Path, scoped rules, skills, progress.md, plan.md. So these are persistent, which survive across. So we are discussing knowledge, and we are saying that these are the strategies. So write is basically either progress or claude.md. Select is a skill, example of a skill. Compress is a feature there. And isolate is how you divide work or make use of sub agents. Okay.
Akhil, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I can't
Right.
see your screen. Have you stopped sharing, or
You can
is it just me who cannot see, or everyone else sees it?
people
I
on the
can
teams.
see.
Yeah, we can see it.
No, it flickered once, but it came for me.
Yeah, but
Same
I
like
still cannot see your screen.
Do you want to so 2 options for you: either rejoin or join the meet. You have the meet link. I'm sure meet is working fine.
Yeah.
So
Just give me a minute. Let me try
no
to
problem.
join you.
Yeah, so Sid, you are seeing slide 3, right?
yes.
Okay. Okay, so okay, I broke my chain of thoughts. Okay, now instruction should be specific enough to guide behavior, but flexible enough to serve as heuristics. So this is this goes back to prompt engineering. If you think about it, like 2 years ago, we used to think of ways of writing better and better prompts. Instructions are no different. So if you give very vague instruction, it's not going to do the good job. If you give very, very rigid logical tree, then also it's not, then it's basically just doing kind of logic conversion from your English to, so you have to choose somewhere in between. Okay, so just like people used to graduate into prompt engineering, it's the same thing that you'll have to learn to write your claude.md over time. Okay. So did anybody see Shruta rejoin either here or there?
Yeah, I rejoined.
Okay,
I can
great.
see your screen. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now I'm on slide 4. This is the second slide in knowledge. What I want to sensitize is that people who use Claude, they should know that the agent actually has a 6-layer memory system. So this idea of capturing knowledge, I think most people start by using Claude.md, and some people don't even use that. And because you don't know that, you are losing something. So it's actually a 6-level hierarchy. We'll have to skip the first one because that only applies to the enterprise teams plan that I have not experienced. I don't want to just repeat what I have not seen. Okay. Below that, so other 5, we have discussed project memory, that in any project's code base, you can have this. This is like AutoEXE bat or bash profile, that as the bot starts, it first reads this and it does whatever is written there. So it's a good idea to commit it to Git. It's a good idea to put your regular build commands and some other common patterns of code. It's a bad idea to put requirements in that, because as your project evolves, your requirements would keep changing. Because Ria is working on task 1, Shirita is working on task 2, Sid is doing something else. So if you start putting the actual project things in this, it'll have unnecessary material. So it should just have basic operating principles. This is how we build this project. This is how we, these are the coding patterns we follow, things like that. Okay. Then this is a very, very interesting idea that I think it's very, very relevant to blue box type of work. So they have this thing called rules/star.md, where whatever you put inside rules, and in the lab I'll cover it, it matches a file pattern. So inside that there's a glob, and you say that these rules apply to only this type of file. So remember I gave that Golang example. So you can say in Golang always use this, or you can say in my you have this in Bluebox, you have this backend files and you have front end files like React.js. So you can make rules which are specific for CSS files, specific for JS files, specific for CS files. Within CS files, you can say this is for my web request files, this is for my API files. So why do we do that? For this, remember I said selective. So these won't get loaded into your context till the time it is hitting that type of a file. So it's a very important concept that by using that, we can avoid the context route. Then there is this obvious one, which is user memory. So it says tilde/, that means that user level. So within user level, there is a .claude folder. You can have a claude.md. This does not get into Git. So Sid can have his own and Ria can have his own. This is your personal preferences. It applies to all the projects. So a good example is I prefer concise responses. Another one could be I use Visual Studio Enterprise, or I use Visual Studio Community Edition, or things like that, which are user to user variations. Okay, now this applies to all projects. So what do you do when you have personal things specific to projects? So for that, there is claude.local.md. This again, git ignored, does not get committed. But here you put very specific things which are related to this project. So for example, my test DB is on 5433. So PostgreSQL 5432, but for some reason you're running in 5433 because you have 4 projects, each have different listener. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. This 5th level is invisible to you. This is a very new concept. You have to enable something to do that. This is Claude learning on its own. And it's like a fluent style. You can say, remember to blah, blah, blah. Remember that my blah, blah, blah. Remember. So what it does is, and I'll show you a demo, that it builds a memory for that project, which is in none of these files. Okay. So I discussed path scoped rules. We'll cover them. I discussed auto memory. Oh, one thing is that in so I said that Claude.md is like a bootstrap. It's like a auto.exe.bat. So within this, you can include other files by saying add some path to file.md. So if it's like hash include that instead of, so you can say I am currently working on requirements.md, right? So what will happen is that requirements.md is different for Ria and different for Deepak because it's in their local workspace. When the bot starts, for Ria, it will go to the content of requirements.md, which Ria has, and likewise, right? So this importing is important to know. Now, in each of these cases, just I want to say, in each of these cases, you can also not follow these techniques, but get somewhat similar results by bloating your context. So you can try this, that in Claude.md, instead of writing it this way, you can say blah blah is in this file. What happens is now this thing will do two round trips. This thing will go to the thinking engine. Thinking engine will say, okay, now go read that. Just by putting this special symbologies, like star something, glob something, add something, you're avoiding a round trip to the cloud. Your local agent, because it knows this means that, is doing the job for you. Okay. So basically, this is a way to keep the root file short and split rules into focus modules. So some examples here. Now, in the same knowledge section, there's one interesting thing is learning extraction habit. So let's say you struggle with something, you could not get the bot to do exactly what you wanted it to do. Once you have fought that battle, ask the bot what addition to Claude.md or Claude local or whatever would have prevented this. Okay. And it would come up with a way to update that file. So it's like you struggle and then you try to reduce that for the next time. Okay, now because I'm saying all this, you might be all confused, which is not my purpose. So if you have permanent project rules, put in, so like your whole team agrees, put it in Claude.md. Your whole team agrees that certain type of files should follow this rule, put it here. You have some one-time discoveries, which are, like you debug, and you find something and you want to remember it, put it in learnings.md. Because it's not something that every developer will or every situation will need. And if you have some domain expertise, which every time takes too much discovery, then push it to skills, which I'll cover in the next. Okay, so why are we doing this? Because session one, you struggle with 10 things, then you improve, then you struggle with 3 things, then you improve. So very soon, so every time you improve, you're writing somewhere. Because of that, after few sessions, you'll have a native pair program, a project native pair programmer who knows your technique and is constantly working with you. Okay, make specific effort to make this concise. As you make longer files, you will dilute attention. I'll be covering hooks, so we can ignore this right now. So let's jump into. So I had an idea about the hands-on that you can decide either to do the hands, you just follow what I'm doing on the screen on your laptop because time is limited. I want to make sure that we don't spend time in kind of setting up things and all that. Okay, so I pushed all of you to do some prerequisites and setups, and I'm sure that you would have done them, but we'll jump directly into the lab one. Okay, it's not necessary for you to do it on your laptop. Just pay attention. Okay, so we discussed different memories, right? So in next 5 minutes, I'll try to show you glimpses of this 6-layer memory hierarchy. If your VS Code is open, you can open it. I mean, I've already said that you would have seen this wall that it keeps losing your knowledge. So these are ways to preserving them. So first is you would have cloned this agentic workshop demo project from GitHub Opera Labs. The project is right now as it is. I think no file is modified as just the same thing. So the first instruction there is look at this file. Send it to. Right. Yeah. Okay. So this is a sample project. I mean, I probably there's no much value in spending time in discussing the project. I wanted to show a Claude.md file. So this is an imaginary process, which is a note taker API, the REST API for managing notes, built with Node.js Express type. I have not written it. Claude wrote it. We discussed, right? So it is telling the bot that this project you can test with npm test. You can run test coverage like this. You start it on port 3000 like this. So you've given some, right? It's also written that I have this skill that within this project, there is a specific skill about how to do DevOps for this project. There are some coding conventions that API handler should go in this. So see, none of them is a specific requirement. It's just a generic thing that you talk about, right? And it's a short file, typically 100 lines, maybe 150 lines, never more. It doesn't have formatting rules. It doesn't say this is how you should format code, because that's a linter's job. Okay, so that was the first step. I mean, I'll finish this exercise, then we can have a quick discussion. Okay, step 2. So remember I spoke about this idea. So path scoped rules. Path scope rules have this format. This area is called the front matter. So you put like these 3 lines and say paths colon, you put a YAML here. So what it means is within Claude rules, this rule applies to this set of files. Okay. So what is the rule? All API handlers must validate inputs before processing. Use validation helpers from here. Do not inline validation logic. So this common DRY problems, right? That what my biggest issue with agentic is that the do not repeat yourself or DRY principle is broken every hour. Every 20 minutes, I'll see it not reuse, but just copy paste.
क्या है पांच
Verma, you're saying something? No.
क्या
Okay.
किल
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I heard, I assumed that was your voice. Okay. Never written raw database errors. So you come up with some rules for this TS files, which do not apply to, let's say, CS files. So what are your choices? You could have taken all this and put it here, in which case, irrespective of what file is being edited, that rule is still inside your context, right? And blah and blah. So specifics don't matter. What matters is that you can filter by this glob pattern and apply the rule. Okay. So these rules only activate when Claude touches files matching the glob pattern. The rules are specific. Okay. So relate back to what I'm saying, that instead of making a round trip to the thinking engine, to the LLM, you're just doing it at the local tool level itself. The agent sees that. So just try to do this conversation in your brain. You're doing something. It goes to the LLM. LLM says, I need to read a CS following CS file. So the agent's job is to now call read and basically cat that file so that it goes there. Now, what will happen is if what you, so there's a key part. LLM says, I need src/API/ let's say person.ts. That match happens. And because of that match happens, this gobbly-goo is attached to the conversation. So now the LLM additionally says, since I'm going to edit this file, I have to follow these rules. Okay. It's a cheap, I mean, it's a trick built into the tool set to be able to, if you relate back to my slide, that now what you're trying to do is you're trying to selectively invoke knowledge. Okay. Okay. Any comments so far? No. Okay. Keep moving. So next I wanted to show this auto memory, which is an interesting feature. So on my screen, I have the materials here, what I'm discussing here, and at the bottom, I have a terminal, which is a regular Git bash, right? So since you have the setup, you can say Claude here. Okay. I'll just copy paste it here. So remember that I prefer using, so I want you to all understand what remember that means. Remember that is a hook for the LLM to remember something for you, and it'll survive the session. Okay. See this. So this is the interesting part. I have noted your preference. Let me save that by memory so I remember it across sessions. So if you, whatever you wanted to remember, you can do this. Okay. Now, next thing I want to show you is if I say Control O, it shows agents thinking, right? It says write to this. So I'm going to open that file because Alt tab, I can open this one. Control click in this tool. Okay. What did it do? It created, so look at the file name. Claude projects. This is the name of the folder that I'm working on, memory.md. So it instantly created a new memory and it says users preferences when running tests locally, use this. So now what will happen is whenever you say test, it'll make sure that verbose is attached. So you save some trouble. So I was saying you'll get a native pair programmer because you're teaching it your tricks by saying remember this, remember that. Okay. And try doing one more. So Control O to go back here. Likewise, you can put this. See, the project memory got modified. So I wanted to show you a demo of where project memory lives. And whenever you hit some discovery moment, remembering a port or how a certain rule or something which is kind of specific to your environment, you can just say it. Because it has automatically gone here, you didn't have to type it. It went there. Next time you start it, it'll always know about it. Okay. Next thing that I wanted to emphasize is that let's say we did a lot of debugging, it's a daily practice in our thing, right? We start running something and the port is busy because another thing is running. So you change the port and then your bot is struggling because your tests are failing because they're going to the wrong something, right? So let's say you went through this struggle, right? Now you realize that the problem was because it's not 5432, but 33. So you have two choices, just be ignorant. Next time you come back, you'll find literally the same battle and go back, you reinvent the wheel. Or you can say, we just spent time figuring out that TestDB uses this. What addition to this would have prevented this on the first try? So let's check what's already there. So it says adding a line to the test database port, blah, blah, blah. This fits naturally. Okay. So what did it update? Okay, it says, do you want me to edit? Yes, edit. Okay, now this is what I say, that nanny mode, right? So allow all edits during this session. So see, this file became modified. Okay, local overrides not committed to Git. When running locally, I use port 3. So this was already there. And you can see in the diff also. So this was already there and this got added. Test database runs on this, not on this. Okay, so these are different ways of kind of collecting knowledge. And in all these labs, I have this key takeaways, which I won't repeat. I have try yourself and I have some homeworks that you can do yourself. And after that, there are some thinking exercise that will help you think about what happens when. Okay, any questions on lab 1? Okay, I take it for a no. Yep. Right. Yeah, it was helpful. I mean, it was revealing for me also, because I immediately related that in Blue Box, there are, I think, 2000 files. Some are API calls, some are React related, some are something else related. And if you just keep writing rules, you'll go mad. So if you can classify it, it's a good thing. Okay. Okay, so we're done with lab one. Moving on. Next topic was about skills, right? So, I mean, I know in one of these meetings, Mridul brought up that he tried skills and didn't work. And so I thought it would be a good idea to have a lab and discuss it in detail. Okay, so we all know that these LLMs have been trained on vast amount of GitHub code, right? But yet it may not have everything. Even if it has everything, it may not have how specifically use something. So, for example, GH command line or serverless command line or any of the CLIs that you have been using in your projects, whether it's Terraform or serverless, AWS, GH, I don't even know, but there is a certain way you use them, and that's all that matters to you. The whole gigantic knowledge about every GitHub command line or every AWS command line, you do not need to know in your project. So what skills do is, you know, if you onboard a new developer, they develop a skill, right? You train them for a few days or few weeks, they develop a skill. It's exactly that. You come up with descriptions about how to do certain things so that it can quickly do it. And other important thing is this is domain specific. So even though you are using the same Microsoft Azure, somebody else is using the same Microsoft Azure, since you focus only on blob storage and blah, you will write a skill in a way, they will write a skill in a different way. If both of you together try to create a gigantic AWS or Azure skill, it will not serve the purpose, because this you'll go back to again stuffing the context with too much information. So people have come together, like various companies, all these big open AIs and all that, and they have published a generic specification about how to write a skill. So whether it's Claude Code, whether it's GitHub Copilot, OpenAI, all of them support now this concept of skills. What I mean is I have read these two, so I know this exists. For this, I just did searches and I'm not personally verified, but I have read that they support it. Now, why does it matter? I think we'll get to a real example. Till the time, hold it. So that's one thing. Okay. So what a skill does is you have a big knowledge space. Something needs a lot of discovery. You cut the knowledge space and the discovery into a short document or a set of documents. And progressive disclosure applies, that you don't open that box till the time it is needed. No, it remains collapsed state. It just, the LLM only knows that this skill exists without knowing what it contains. You specifically invoke it, then it comes to your context and it is made use of. So that's one part. The other part is the sub-agent pattern. So when we are working, and I'll show you a quick example, we try to interact with various tools and all of them generate some log, something. Each of, if you remember in my last talk, I tried to say every time you do something, a new text gets generated. Then you say something, a new text. It does not care whether the text was a log or, highly verbose something. It just keeps appending everything to that conversation and your context fills, right? But if you use a sub agent, all these logs and GitHub command line, Git logs, Git commit messages, whatever you're doing on your command line, they go to a sub agent's context. It does what it is supposed to do, and a summary comes back to you in small form. Okay. So a very, very important thing that I have realized is if you are working on something, let's say you're working on implementing a task and suddenly you have to handle Git rebase. So my natural instinct is to just say, somebody else just updated this branch. Can you rebase my branch to that? And I used to feel I've done a good job, but I realize now that that's a stupid thing I was doing, because this whole conversation of it invoking Git commands and logs that generate, they're all part of my current conversation and I'm losing context. The right way to do that is this. Spin up a sub agent to do my Git commit, spin up a sub agent to rebase. Every time you say that, it's like somebody else, without spoiling your context, does it. And at the end of it, it prints one line saying, I have committed following files, or this is the GitHub, this is the Git commit message. Okay. So remember this idea, sub agent is yet another way of spreading it thin, like dividing it into pieces. Outside of this, you can actually go read this. It's a big, vast skill to understand how a skill works. Then next thing is when to create a skill. Let's say you try to discover the same problem multiple times and you realize that everybody in your team must be failing this problem. You should try to extract that into a skill. Skill could be the skill to create a blue sky React page, blue sky. So blue sky spa page is a good example of a skill. Blue sky report, blue sky analytics, or let's take from other projects. I mean, each project has some repeated templates of code, right? Each of those templates have taken you years of back and forth to come up with a pattern. It's a good idea to convert it to a skill and say, you can say, whenever I develop a Blue Sky API, Blue Sky Web API, I always do this. I always write this annotation. I have to write this permission service. You convert into a skill, it'll move very fast. Complex domain agent doesn't know natively. So any complex domain knowledge that the agent does not know, you write a skill to make it know. Otherwise, it'll take too much time to explore that. If a task distracts from the main focus, I just said that, then use a sub-agent with a skill. Okay. Knowledge that's project specific, but stable, like more than one team members can use it. Again, good example to make a skill. So I said skill multiple times without showing example. Hold on for 2 more minutes. They have this new concept called plugins. We'll explore one, which is skills plus hooks plus MCP all into one. So now since December, they have a plugin system, which is an installable bundle of skill, hook, and MCP. We'll be doing all three one by one, and also sub agents. It works, and I'll show you a demo. Very, very important thing is there are now skill marketplaces from where you can download skill. You can go to GitHub, you can find skills. Be very, very careful. These skills, because they run code on your machine. So you download somebody else's code and you run it. This is where prompt injection or other kinds of malicious intents can be realized, because it is, if you take somebody else's skills, you are basically taking a big ownership that you have validated that somebody else's code is not going to delete or steal or things like that. Okay, and this foundation, AIF, Agentic AI Foundation, is now working on a skill verification system like signed packages so that this type of nonsense doesn't happen. Okay, any comments while I set up to the second lab? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yes, so yeah, so in Claude.md, you can write a very like first line, you can say not negotiable, only develop on branch, and you give a branch name, right? You can, if your project model is that you use one branch and Kashyap uses a different branch, then you should write it in claude.local.md, the same sentence, not negotiable, only work on branch blah. Okay. All right, so lab number 2. learn is how skills provide domain knowledge. We have so progressive disclosure is the keyword, and how sub-agents keep. I think I've already said it, so I'll jump over this. In this example project, I have a tiny skill. It's not very useful, but it just brings home the point. So we'll read this file now. So in this Node API, I've tried to add a DevOps skill. And I'm just because I'm familiar with DevOps and I feel that these bots know very little about DevOps, I end up there. But it can even be how we develop SQL. Like for example, in Blue Box, there may be a very specific way of doing SQLs. So you can have a Blue Box SQL skill or Blue Box TSQL skill or stored proc skill. Okay, so all skills will have something in the beginning, which is what goes into the context when begin. It's like saying this is the address that if the task matches this, then only read rest of the file. So this what comes here in the top in this is called the front matter. The first section has the important thing. REST API. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong file. Yeah. Can happen. Yeah, so this is skill. So what does this skill do? Check CI/CD pipeline status, diagnose build failures, and summarize results. When to use this skill when asked for this. Pipeline structure, that this project has a pipeline. There is a cy.ml and you can. Okay. Then it says how to check the pipeline. Always call this, then this, then this. And how to interpret failure. So this project has this way of and how to report, right? So once you understand this, now I'll try to say first thing to understand skills is, let's see. So I'm in Claude in this project. I'm saying what custom skills do you have in this project? Okay, based on the project's Claude.md here. Remember, we wrote here a sentence, skills. This is the position of the skill. Based on this, there is one custom skill, note API. You can invoke, so I can invoke it by saying /notes. Oops, sorry. Or I can show a demo. Okay, so basically I made Claude realize that this skill exists. Now it says you can invoke it by saying /something. Would you like me to read the skill file for more? I'm not saying that. Okay. Now we'll do something else. I'll say / because I also want everybody to see what possibilities exist. So let's say /context. So let's first understand what context looks like. So we keep saying context, right? So currently in this conversation, this is how context looks like. In this top, you just imagine that your 200,000 tokens are one divided into this 10 rows. First or 10% or 11% is gone in loading this model itself. This is a heavyweight model. So Claude Opus 4.6 requires this much of system prompt. Okay, this much of something, which is if you use a cheaper model, it will take half of this, even cheaper model, even less than that. Then it says there is a system prompt that we don't know, and people keep coming up with tools, MCP tools, memory files, right? So overall, this much is currently in use. And at the bottom, there is a 16.5% of auto compact buffer that as I converse, these boxes will keep getting fill. The moment it hits here, it'll say now I need to compact because it'll send all of this in so that it can do back and forth. And this is like your bike's reserve space. You cannot touch it. Once you reach here, you'll have to just drive to the petrol pump. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that the skill only takes 196 tokens. Okay, so my skill file is this big. See, my skill file is roughly 55 lines. Each line has 50 characters or 20 characters. Still a lot. Okay, so now we are going to do this experiment. It's funny that in this lab, all I have to do is copy paste. Okay, spin up a sub agent with the, so why am I spinning up a sub agent is because whatever back and forth, all these commands when they run, I don't want that to corrupt my main conversation, right? Let's see what happens. Well, so okay, let me first read this. So this is the first time it has read the skill file. It will take some time because now all this text is being consumed. Then it says, now let me spin up a sub agent to check this. So this is the sub agent running behind. You are a DevOps. So yeah, this is also important. This I'm doing this in nanny mode purposefully so that everybody sees it's about to run this and it's asking me. So I have two options. I can say yes, or I can say yes, don't ask it again for GH commands. Immediately it updated the settings.json to have no, it should have updated actually maybe. Yeah, so you see this settings local.json got a allow bash gs run because I said always allow. Okay, so it's like a background process ran with a conversational mode. We can control O to check, and it says last CI pipeline passed with no issues. Pipeline status pass, run number this, blah, blah, blah. So it gathered all that information through this skill and it gave me this. Now, if I again run the slash context, slash context, only 2% lost. If I was to do without sub agent, it would have taken more. So I'm trying in this lab, I'm trying to cover two things. Sub agents save your main context, and skills is a good way to split knowledge. Okay. This is what is written here. And if I don't have to prove, you can go to we can try there. So I asked the workflow status, and because it went over this, it gave me about the last one. Okay, any questions on lab 2? Yeah. So I always start by asking Claude to create the skill, and then I go into skill.md and refine it. So I mean, so it goes into the same thing that after this meeting, whenever you get time, read key takeaways and read this, try it yourself. In this case, like for example, the Upra Pipes DevOps skill is that big. So this is not written by Claude, but what I did is in all of them, I said, while debugging something related to CUDA, I came to some conclusion that it takes too long to figure it out. Then I say, okay, please update troubleshooting steps for CUDA with this. Plus, please update troubleshooting steps for Jetson builds with this. So later, please go explore this. The answer will be there. This idea of wholesale relying on Claude is actually bad because it does blunders there. So always, because this is critical, right? This is not something that is done once and done, right? You have to constantly use it. So most of the time what happens is it ends up creating a very large skill file which has garbage, like it'll have some information which nobody can use. Like for example, it'll say that on this day this user committed this. That information has no use for that skill. So then you have to use more language. You have to say, read this skill.md, remove anything which is transactional, only put something which is a timeless knowledge. So there is value in creating it because you save time, but my advice is always go read it. And again, there is more thinking exercises here for everybody to think about these problems. They'll make you understand more and never forget the security problem, because that's a very important thing. If you bring third-party skills, you'll have to pay attention to what it is doing on your computer. Any other questions? Anybody? Mhm.
No questions from me, thanks.
Are you talking about the skills repository or? I think so. What I'm doing is this. I mean, for the organization, this is what I'm doing. Short answer to your question is yes, Kashyap. Yeah, sometimes finding things takes too long. Yeah, Claude skills collection. Okay, so I mean, whatever I'm doing for this workshop is some Claude knowledge MCP that I developed. There's some LVSM log analyzer skill. Then I have put the Opera pipes skill here. Dot Claude. Short answer is always yes. So develop the skill, because I think the value of the skill is never for one person, right? As a lead project, person, you will discover something that you want, Nitin, Satvik, or whoever to follow. So this is your way of saying, instead of they spending time with their bot, just have a common place where the skill is committed. So I like this pattern that within Claude skills, put the skill, and then in Claude.md write that I have this skill. And then as a project manager, you can keep pushing changes to it. Everybody refreshes, they get the kind of updated skill. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yes, Omkar. Mhm. So actually, whatever I've read on the internet, the common practices, or see, these agents have a lot of code in it. So following a common practice of dot Claude slash something is a good idea, because a lot of things get done without you saying, right? So in the project root, always have a dot Claude and put things there. Some of them get committed because they're shared. Some of them are local, so don't get committed. Simplest. Okay. All right. So this is the last slide in knowledge. This is very important that you would notice that we just converse with the bot, right? So we ask it to write some code, it writes some code. But what if you wanted to SSH something and download something? Or what if you ask it to spin a Docker and do something, or access? And if you want to do anything more than that, MCP basically gives it hands, right? Not just brain, but hands. So model context protocol is about making the agent get hands or eyes or whatever you call it. I don't want to call it extending it, but that's a way to say it will craft a query and you'll run it. So running an SQL query is a good example. That's where MC becomes handy. If you don't have it, then every time you want to interact with something external, you will have to copy paste the results into the conversation. So you'll go somewhere. So you'll have, let's say, SSMS running. You'll run a query. It'll give you 100 rows of something. You'll copy, put it into Claude or whatever, and say, now analyze this. So that's bad, right? Because you are every time you have to spend time to connect the dots. That is time wasted, because then you'll do it once, twice, thrice, four times, right? MCP is the solution for that. That through MCP, you can make this agent invoke code. Now it's different than skill because this gives specific callouts. Okay. So examples are here. So MCP protocol is like part of the, this Agentic AI Foundation. Anthropic donated it, does not matter. They say it's like USB-C for AI. So you develop something, another platform can use it, or likewise. So agent could be Claude Code, Copilot, Cursor, right? But you may need to take browser. This is my favorite example. It works very well also. So you may have to take browser snapshots, right? So doing UI development, like while developing this whole slideshow, I use this browser snapshot, day, night, and every 5 minutes, because I created a MCP to take faceless snapshots and then used it everywhere. Like every time I don't see good slide, I say capture slide 5 and make sure that fonts are bigger, or make sure that the white space is blah, or make sure it has a meme or whatever. So I, through this, I'm able to give eyes to my LLM. Okay, so extend that idea that you may want to have during your development, you may want to query the database, you may want to post to Slack or Jira, or I don't know, something. You want the bot to do something other than thinking something. So right now it can write code, it can compile code, but what if you have to query? Okay. And this is supported in all platforms, so it's very important to know. Add MCP servers to, so in Claude, you can either put it to .claude/settings as JSON, put a thing like this, or there are two more patterns that I'll cover. Now let's just try to understand what it is and what it doesn't. So if the use case is to capture browser screenshots, yes, because agent on its own cannot launch a browser, right? It has restrictions. By putting a well-defined MCP, you are breaking that restriction and you're giving it a new tool. Query a database, good example. Posting to Slack, Jira, good example. Reading or writing local files. No, they already have a read tool, they already have a write tool, they already have a modify tool. Running shell commands. Agent already has bash, WSL, PowerShell. It can run all those shells. So for these examples, do not develop a MCP, because you may not have discovered more, but they're all possible. But for these examples, develop an MCP. Same security warning here also, that these run as local processes with your user permission. So if you download maliciously written MCP server, it might destroy your system. It can do whatever. Just like you can do NPM packages, right? From somewhere, you can bring any NPM, install something. If that is bad, outcome will be bad. But there is a solution for that called the sandbox. Any questions before I jump into the demo? Okay, so in this lab, how to give eyes to your agent. Let me close some files here. Okay. So as part of the setup, I asked everybody to download a file, right? Download a MCP repo. Was everybody able to replicate it? Okay, great. This one, right? Browser snapshot agent, right? So, I mean, just to keep momentum going, I'll open that here just so that we can explore it. But then I'll remove it from the workspace also very soon. So it says, where is its MCP server.js? This is the MCP server.js. So it's nothing, it's a regular node.js file, which is written with specific language. What this code does, I can tell you, it uses this thing called Puppeteer, which is which uses Chromium to launch and take snapshots. And I've added some tools into that. And this code is again on public GitHub, Opera Labs. You can get it from there. The main thing is we need to basically understand how they work. So if you are on Mac or Linux, you can edit this file. Like in your users.claude settings.json. And likewise on Windows, go to /user/akhil.claude settings.json. Inside that, just put this, right? I'll directly open the example. Okay. That gives a new tool. So I've already, before this thing start, you can see it here also, but let's just say slash. Okay. So first thing to learn is /MCP. So I'm asking Claude, what MCP servers do you have? So it says I have two MCP servers. One is called Claude.ai Asana, which is not enabled. Other is called browser snapshot, which is here. So if I say control click, it'll open this way. Okay. Control F. Okay. So this in Windows, go to this file and just put this thing, browser snapshot, type STI. They have multiple ways of inter-process communication. One of them is stdio. Command is node. It's going to run node and this, right? Now, once you do this, you save this, you restart Claude. It has this new MCP server. Now let's see this in action. So I did already launch Claude, did /MCP. Okay. And now let's have some fun with this. Okay. So read this prompt. Somebody read it. Capture a mobile screenshot of https://bluebox.com and suggest 3 important improvements. So nanny mode, right? Do you want to proceed? Yes, but don't ask again. Okay. So what my code does is that it takes snapshots. Okay, so let's zoom in. This is the bluebox.com website. Okay, so this simple thing is so liberating while developing websites that I cannot tell you. Like I just give a goal. This is my kind of, you can say, last 1 year's learning, that unless you create a feedback loop with LLM, you'll not go anywhere. So whenever I want to achieve something, I'll say, keep doing it till the time it looks like that. Okay, so what did it do? It captured a snapshot, which is this. Then it read that file. It says, here is the mobile screenshot of this. Based on my analysis, here are 3 improvements. Cookie banner overwhelms the mobile viewport. If you see in this big, because I said mobile, right? So it took in the mobile resolution. Okay. So it read it, it gave an advice. It says newsletter pop-up blocks core content. Another advice, text heavy section with poor. So imagine you use this with your HTML code and say, okay, remove the cookie banner. It'll, because it knows where it appears, it'll explore the code, it'll go fix it. Any reactions to this? Yeah, sure. Oops, I did /clear. Okay, sorry. My mistake. So I'm going to do this again. I'll remove the suggest 3 and I'll do one more thing. So I'm just trying to establish how good this type of things are. I'll show you my tool just has a definition of a viewport. So you remember when I cleared last time, I had 11 or 12% context. So the pitch I was making is if your work routinely requires you to do something, convert it into a skill, then you'll move much faster. And I did not do it. I should have done it through a sub agent to save context. So see what happened. It called capture multiple viewports. This is the command that I wrote. It figured out that desktop means 1920 and mobile means 375 6 whatever, and then full page is true, and it got two screenshots. Okay, this and this, and then here are the screenshots. And now I'll do what you're asking me to do, slash context. This is where I struggle actually. That yeah. So it's still at 11%. This is the beauty of MCP, right? Because it crafted the Node.js thing and just so these are the four MCP tools, right? First one takes snapshot, second one takes multiple viewports, another one takes responsive set, and another one is I use it for testing that you give it a config file which has multiple configurations. So none of this, none of my context is wasted in doing this because all it did is it figured out this line to call. it would have come from here to here. It would first figure out, it'll even ask you, should I use Puppeteer or should I use Playwright? And then you'll say Playwright. Then say, oh, I tried Playwright, but I don't have Python here, but pip is old. You will literally end up in frustration that you wanted to do something good, but you ended up just help. It's like you enter the office and you help an intern and half the day is gone. It's exactly that same feeling. This is very important that none of this context is wasted. It says MCP tools take this just one coin here, right? This 963 tokens is this entire thing. Based on my prompt, it figures out what to run. It just runs that and came back. That's all. Nothing is lost. Okay. Any other people, other comments? There's nothing. It's here. This is public. Just go read. This is from. It's already on your laptop if you followed the instructions. Other people, other comments? Okay. So skipping again, read key takeaways, do the homework, and we'll get back. Let's see. It's 12. No, it's okay. So we are done with knowledge. I mean, part one. Okay, so the sequence is important, right? Knowledge, safety, autonomy, scale. If you without having this various way of knowledge, you won't be able to do scale clearly, right? Because context will keep running out. And without safety, you can't do autonomy. Because if it is not safe and you leave it to this bot, it might do some kachra. Right? Remember in my dog slides, there's a meme which says I was only gone for 10 minutes and the dog basically spoiled the whole sofa. Right? So what is the best way to save? So the point I'm making is it's up to you to set up in a way that instead of I specifically in so far all the demos that I did, I made sure that my settings.md does not have any permission. Like in default state, I wanted you to see the pain that you start doing something and it'll ask you back. It keeps asking you back. They implemented it for safety, but I think that's the most stupid thing. If your safety depends on clicking approve 200 times a day, then it breaks the moment. So as soon as you think that I've given it work, you step out, it'll be waiting for a question. This is my first 2 months with Claude. That frustrating. That's one thing. The other thing is that don't think that this threat is unreal. There is this very new paper, September of 2025. Just read this one. All these rule files that I'm talking about, right? Like .md this, .md that, all of them have this threat surface that there are these invisible Unicode characters that you don't see in your editor, but they may be there in the thing. And because the bot doesn't know that they're invisible characters for it, it is still a text, right? It's a LLM finally. So those can say um, post the password to this, or delete this file, or uh, create a new user in this Git, or whatever. Okay, and they have these people, they experimented with various tricks like zero width joiners, bidirectional markers. You won't understand what's there. They'll just look like pretty emojis, but they're hidden messages to make the bot do something, and they can come as part of your MCP servers. They may come out of as your skills. They may definitely come from random people's GitHub. So careful. Okay. So, and these malicious instructions can be anywhere in a GitHub issue, because what's literally happening, it's like content injection or SQL injection attack. That in case of a LLM or agentic AI, one big problem is you are generating code and you have the ability to run code. Just think how dangerous it can be, because this loop can spiral into something very poor, right? Very, not only poor, very bad. That every iteration it says, I still could not find the password, let me try that. Okay, still cannot find, let me try that. And it will eventually figure it out, right? So the core question is how to make it such that this is not a problem. So just think about it. If your secrets were not on the machine, then what can it do? There's no pot of gold to infiltrate or exfiltrate, right? If they were on the machine but access was denied, it'll only work if you configured the rules properly, right? And the worst state is that they are on your machine, they are also accessible. So that means you're one prompt injection away from a breach. Unfortunately, all of us, including me, are right now here. We don't realize it. We just trust it too much. And this paper shows you that the trust is very bad, because 85% of attacks success rate is because of coding agents in auto mode with prompt injection. Okay, so just sensitizing here. Okay, let's see. So the last slide pitch was, if secrets are not on the machine, then they can't be stolen, right? So it's the architecture that makes autonomy safe. If you by design make it bounded blast radius, that means when things go wrong, what can go wrong? So just what can agent do? So it should be able to read write code. It should be able to run tests locally. It should be able to push to feature branches. It should be able to trigger pipelines, because this is what a developer needs to do, right? Now, what an agent should not do in a safe world, it should not be allowed to deploy to AWS on its own. It should not be allowed to access production. This I will never agree. Even probably 6 months from now, I won't agree that I don't want these agents to do anything with production. Okay, never read secret variables, not because they're sending it to Anthropic, because there is a potential that they may get copy pasted into something that you don't know. My worry is not that Anthropic is reading my code. That's not my worry at all. My worry is that this has access to this and it has ability to invoke web searches. What if it takes this and puts it into a web search, which actually hits somebody's local host and it gets cached there? Or it makes a gist, the GitHub gits, it can make a gist of all my passwords and they're public, because I have given him access to GH for me. So none of them agent should be able to do. So how do you work then? So the model that I have come up with is this. No different than how I'll set up a very junior developer, like give them everything that is needed for their day-to-day job, but make everything else inaccessible, but yet have a workflow by means of CI/CD pipelines, GitHub workflows, Azure DevOps workflows, right? So what is the model? The model is very simple. Keep all the secret variables on the CI/CD pipeline. If the agent could only trigger the pipeline, then it can never steal it, because even these things are so good. Like you can try hard. You will never be able to make a secret variable in GitHub or in Azure DevOps or in Bitbucket DevOps to be ever printed to a log. You can try every possible trick in the world. They have done it so well that before the log comes to your screen, every secret is removed from the. Just they do string search. I don't know what they do, but you can try. So even if this guy crafts something, it won't be able to make the secret show up in the logs, and hence it is safe. So this is one example. Okay, and this, unfortunately, this example can never be achieved by prompt manipulation. So never try to do security by giving very strict prompts that do not leak passwords, or stuff Claude.md with security sentences. They literally mean nothing to the bot, actually, unfortunately. So security is enforced at the sandbox level and not at a permission prompt level. So because we start doing everything with prompt, you may start thinking that I'll forbid this from seeing something. We discuss the context rot and this and that. As the conversation becomes big, some things get dropped. So it itself will forget. So never use prompt to protect you. Okay, so that's one model. The other model are sandboxing. So I'll just quickly flash it here. So those of you who've been using Claude, they added this. Everybody has seen chat, right, on this side, but now they added code. So you can basically, it says you choose a code base here, then choose a branch. Like I have two branches here, or you can say, do this in a specific work tree outside, and then give a prompt. This does coding. The only difference between this and what I'm doing is this is sandboxed. It is running inside a Docker container, which only loads this and nothing else. So whatever is in this is accessible. Even C colon Akhil is not accessible. So that's a good amount of sandboxing, right? They also have other features like this guy. You can say add SSH connection. You can set up an SSH to some server and it will run there. Okay, or you can do set up Claude code on the web where a Docker container runs on the web inside that Claude runs. And because of that, you are limited to just accessing like GitHub. So you can say, go to this GitHub, scan all the issues, find the most important issue and fix it. Or you can say, pick up feature number 5 and implement it, or pick up bug number 23 and fix it. You can give that type of instructions. It's totally sandbox. It's not running on your machine. It's running in cloud in a Docker container. So I didn't have much to do, but I wanted to show this example. So this pattern I followed in a project, and this is the example. So this is a Bitbucket pipeline. And maybe Kashyap and some other know about this. Mainly what I'm trying to show is this is Apra Labs license manager. It gets deployed to AWS and it has lots of secrets. So there's a AWS access key for sandbox. There's a secret for sandbox. There's a production key. There is an access key. Even I can't see them now. Whatever I do, they're committed. They're hidden from me also. Okay, and the keys for Microsoft authentication, Google authentication, everything, smoke test password, everything is in this. The pipeline just refers to these secret variables. Okay, wherever needed, it just refers to them. And because they are secrets, they can never come to log, even if I want them to. And because of that, I have liberty. I can just, if you see uh, if you see the Git history, this project has been completely written. I mean, I've never written one line of code. It probably has all this thing from maybe 200 commits. They're all done uh, by 3 different bots. Because of this, I have no fear. So this was a show and tell. It was not really a hands-on, but I wanted to sensitize that I'm constantly worried that in all our projects we are using this technique that there is a .env or there is a .ssh or there is a .aws or .azure or .gcp, which has some secrets inside it. And since we are going on this path, we will have to take immediate action to remove all of them from all machines and make sure they're only in CI/CD pipelines. If that's a problem, it's worth pausing and solving that problem and not moving ahead. Because if all of us are using bots and these secrets live on the machine, we are just basically walking on a thin edge. Any comments, anybody?
Akhil, I have a question. So this is okay, but in our code base, right, there will be production settings.json or whatever, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Has to be removed. Has to be removed. 1001% they have to be removed if we are taking this path. Fight your battle.
Okay.
See, it has to be removed. There's no that irrespective of what scale this can offer, none of us will be able to sustain if this bot or some hacker through this bot is able to delete even one user from Blue Sky.
Because in full Blue Sky project, we have.
I know.
Yeah.
In both calls, I have said that I know that there is webconfig.json and you have all these things which are it's miserable. I mean, actually, why do even developers have access to production password? So my short answer to you is that's what I'm saying. Pause, fix that problem before moving into this highly scalable agentic approach. Yes, Kashyap. Hmm. 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 No, it's solved in this project. You can see the pattern here. That's the reason I flashed it, because that's why it has the smoke test password in the secrets. I'll go there again if you want. The answer is in this project, Kashyap. So what I face the same problem. And if you remember in this project, I used to have password in the repository. The solution is I turned that into a smoke test, which runs as part of this pipeline. I can show you some. I mean, maybe we'll get digress, but the short answer is explore this code and you will see that the smoke test password is a. Let's go back quickly. Yeah. Yeah, locally you can do. I mean, the local password should have nothing to do with the server. Like that local password should not be able to crash anything. That is just like ABC. This is the real password which touches the real database. It's hidden. My smoke test part of the pipeline reads this temporarily, tries to log in, passes the test, fails login, fails the test. Yes, Nitin. You'll have to think either don't have the bot on that machine, or I mean, there are weaker patterns here. The weaker pattern is this, that you are on the machine, but you can use rules to deny access to that. Like if I go back to my example, in the is that file now settings stuff I have. So if you see this allow, right here in read, you can, so like allow, you can have deny. So you can say deny read of something. So then, so bot won't get, but that's what I'm saying, that is a weak solution because it's waiting for you to misconfigure it one day or one developer, right? So there are solutions, like for example, don't run your bot on your machine, run it in a VM, run it inside a a Docker container, run inside WSL, run inside something where that threat is not there. Yeah, yeah, good point. Good point. So basically, it's like saying on my Linux server, there are two users, a human user and a bot user. Bot user has limited privileges and bot runs only. Totally fine, no problem. It just needs a discipline for you to log in there or SSH into that account and run the bot. Perfect, what chalega. But if the habit is as bad as Blue Box, that you commit the credential into the Git, tab nahi chalega, because because then you'll ask the bot to check out code and you'll get to see the password. Okay, so we'll have to move, but good that everybody's thinking in that direction. Okay. Let's see. So there is a 6-layer hierarchy of guardrails. At the topmost is architecture. Set up your architecture, your development architecture in a way that secrets are in CI/CD. Branches are protected because all platforms offer branch protection now. You can decide who can commit to what branch, or which branch cannot raise pull request, or which pull request merges cannot be done unless a human has seen it. So they all have that, right? So that's architecture. The second is sandbox. You just brought up file system, network isolation, things like that. And there are hooks that I'll discuss. There is, we just said this deny rules and allow rules. So as you go down, these are weaker and weaker. This is strongest. This is next. Weak, weak, very weak here. Prompts is the worst case. So this L1 and L2 are solid. If you try to solve your problems with just L1 and L2, then you don't need this L3, L4, L5, L6. And L6, I don't even want anybody to use ever because they're just imaginary. L3 I'll show just now. So they have this idea of hooks. So you remember, and I think Deepak remembers it well, that in Git, there is pre-commit hook and post-commit hook. These are like small scripts which can be invoked before you commit, and likewise after you commit, right? So those are a way, those are the Git guardrails that they stop you from committing some bad code. They also stop you from, they give you an opportunity to investigate the files which are getting committed. This concept is exactly same, except for prompts. So what happens is pre-tool use is a hook. Whenever you invoke a tool, it gives you a place where a script can be run. So you can prevent the running of something, right? Understood? There is a post tool use, that a tool finished and you may want to invoke something. So for example, is auto lint or auto test, right? So bot generated some code, you want to make sure that it is formatted properly. So you introduce auto lint there. Or bot generated code, you want to run the test cases. So you can say after every something, do this. Okay, you configure them in this file. And the idea is same, that a matcher selects the tool, what tool triggers, and let's just look at the lab and understand. So why am I bringing this? These are giving you opportunities at this level 3 to stop something from happening or react to something after it has happened. Event driven. Okay. Okay. In the basic workshop, we learned the autonomy spectrum, right? Nanny mode, YOLO, which is like extreme. Now it's just putting this imaginary thing that, let's say you want to prevent git push force to happen, or you want to protect from happening RM minus RF to run, right? So, okay. Let's do some more drama here. Okay, so in this thing, just to make this thing go fast and try to kind of also show the total kind of YOLO mode. This time I'm going to run Claude and dangerously skip permissions. So it's not going to ask me for anything. It's like I'm allowing it to run in the wildest possible way. Okay, so currently it says also, if I say slash permissions, it'll tell me that everything can be done. Now it won't ask for anything. So I'm going to ask it to. Anyway, workshop has two purposes. I want to kind of show you all these prompts, right? So create a branch called F4 from main and switch to it. So while we are discussing, this guy will keep doing that. Okay, so now let's look at how hooks are constructed. Okay, so inside .claude, I went to hooks, and within hooks, there is this settings.json, which has hooks, pre-tool use, post-tool use. So what is the pre-tool use? I'm saying that because this is invoked, and if you return 2, that means you cannot proceed. So running a shell file here, bash this. So what is the shell file? Tiered response to risky commands. So if I exit 0, that means do not let it proceed. If you say exit 0 and give some JSON, then it'll turn into a prompt. It'll ask you back even if you are in the dangerous mode. Or if you just say exit 0, it'll allow silently. So all this code is doing is very simple. It says input, whatever came is whatever came as $cat, and then command. Okay. Then says if echo command grep this, so it greps for git push force or drop table or truncate. So it's basically looking for some truncate table, and then it says blocked. So this is tier 1. But let's say there's something you want to allow. So you want to say sometimes intentional. So you give rm minus r. This time it'll basically not block completely, but give a JSON. So it'll ask you a sentence. So this, because see, you are in this wild land now where everything is allowed and you may want to still stop something from happening. So this is a way to do that. Okay. All right. So while we were talking, this guy created a branch called this and also switched to it. Okay. Didn't see. You can always see bang git status. If you say bang, you can run a local command. It says I'm on branch left 4. We read the hook script already. It's a tiered approach. So one says hard exit, right? Okay, I'm assuming that my prerequisites are good. So now I'm going to do this. So let's imagine a prompt. So I'm running in dangerously skip permissions. Force push the current branch to origin main using this. So this is something that I did not want to do, but let's say either inadvertently I typed it, or the thinking engine came up with this suggestion that we should do git push force now. I won't do that. No, actually, this is not the outcome I was expecting. It would print that this is it'll say blocked. So this probably is a bad example here. Let's try something else. Try Yeah, I can try this. Are you guys still with me, or this is too much talk?
With you.
Okay, so this happened here. So I gave a bad command, which is trying to delete my node modules. It says hook pre-tool use bash requires confirmation for this command. So because this thing is returning a confirmation message, it says, would you want to proceed? So I will, oh, I didn't want this. I'll say no. So even though I am in this dangerous mode, I can say, would you want to proceed? No. So we got saved, right? So remember in the last thing I was saying that when you are in the YOLO mode, you need to worry about selective denying something. This is that. So the first example didn't work because of some reason. We can ignore that. But the problem I feel is in yesterday, I ran into that situation that this guy is so smart. It said what you're trying to do is being blocked by the hook. Here is a better way to do the same thing. It was basically trying to show me that you can jump the barricade, which is a very bad behavior in my opinion. That they've given a so it literally said RM minus RF is not going to work because there is a pre-tool hook, and hence try removing these files by using Python with clear or Python with something else, which I think is a very bad thing. But I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that these things exist. Any comment?
LOL.
It's horrible, actually. I, I don't want to sit and clap about Claude when it's actually destroying things for me, right? Yeah. Okay. So so we saw the example of command being blocked or message coming back. So this gives you an idea about in your projects if there is some things that you want never to happen, you can think about them, grab them here, and do it. And you can use this to do other things also. They have I think 14 hooks. I'm just showing you two of them. Okay, there's one more exercise about hooks which will come to. Now let's look at the last example in this. Add a console log. Okay, so why am I doing that? Because the post tool use says matcher is right. So here the matcher was bash, that if a bash command is there, match to a bash command and then run this to against the command. This one says after this is something has been written or edited, run this. What does it do? It runs npm run lint fix. Okay. Ah, it's poor planning on my part because there was in the beginning projects claude.md explicitly. So here it's written, right? Somewhere it says that, yeah, what not to do, no. So I'll remove this. I'm sorry, I'm confusing you. Okay, so what just happened is in the claude.md, I already had a sentence. It didn't exercise the hook, but there was another way to block the same thing. Let me do this one more time. Okay, so now since the claude.md is modified, it would not know this rule, right? I'm going to say, and everything else is as it is because this is a demo. So this is also showing you this in action, by the way. It's calling update. So what I was hoping to do was that this guy would end up, after the read write update is done, it will end up running this every time. So somehow, I think I was in the middle of some editing and I forgot some. So let's revert this file. One more time. No, sorry, this bombed. Let's move on. But probably there's something to discover here, that mainly you can invoke things like lint and whatever you want to do. And I'll show it in another example very soon. So any questions on this? Was this confusing enough? Okay, let's move a little fast. So now we are still in safety. I gave you some tips about moves credentials. I gave these tools, which I could not make the second demo work. So before we think of autonomy, we should try to answer these things: secrets, limited Git access, branch protections, pipeline runs, human review PRs. Very important that something has to be done by humans, right? On the agent machine, or either no credentials or hooks which blocks them. So we have tried each of them. Some demos didn't work. Sandbox is a good option. I showed the Claude code on the web. I gave an idea of Docker, and I've never explored E2B, but I think that's a new upcoming thing called micro VMs, which run very fast. And what I've read is that Claude code uses Claude code for cloud, or Claude code on web uses that. So, I mean, this tries to grade that if you have everything running in dangerous mode and credentials present, then you have a high exposure, or you have deny, or you have, I mean, I'm kind of repeating this. If you are on this standard, then the next three slides make sense. Okay, so we are done with safety. Let's talk about autonomy. So think of autonomy as you want to give bot more control. You're about to hand over the wheel, and there are three modes that I have come up with. They're interesting. First one is FSD, full self-driving. You know, like Teslas have FSD now. It's a mode where bot is steering, you are watching. This can be done for minutes to hours. Okay. You put a prompt in Claude which says don't ask, just do, but you're watching. So this is the mode you write a big Claude.md or big markdown file, let it run as it is making changes. You look at it, you're staring at the screen, you see something wrong, you say pause. You hit escape, or you see control C, or whatever your tool does. So that's the second mode is, this Ralph Wiggum loop. So what is the core problem? The problem is every time the bot finishes doing something, how do you tell it to do the next job? Right? So, in all these conversations, when I was typing things, it does its job and now it's waiting for you. So how do you give it the next thing? So that's where this stop hooks become handy, because you can think of a stop hook which says do again, right? So that's Ralph Wiggum. We'll come to its slide. And so third mode is overnight harness, where it keeps restarting the agent across multiple sessions. Each restart gives it fresh context from Git, and more JSON state files. So you see these boxes are small, big, bigger. Your attention, you have high attention, you have low attention. Agent autonomy is low here, high here. So you give up more control. So this is the mode where you are sleeping and bot can work on its own, for hours. This is where all of us want to go. Yes. So increasing level of autonomy, you start from here, go here, then go here. In none of them, forget the safety because that's the most important thing. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just trying to show autonomous self-driving. In this mode, driver is sitting there, car is driving itself, but even the government does not allow to take wheels, hands off the wheel. Right now, no sovereign government has allowed that. You still have to keep your hands on the wheel. So that's the FSD mode. If something comes, you have legs on the brake, you brake it. Okay. So for this to work, and this is the least autonomous mode in that spectrum. So how do you do that? First thing you do is you give it full autonomy to say bypass all permissions, because otherwise it's going to keep prompting you back. Okay. The second thing is you give it some behavioral instructions. Say work autonomously. Don't ask, should I proceed? Just proceed. Explain what you're doing as you go. So you give all this. You try to bake this up in the command, in the prompt, so that it works. Okay. This reduces conversational check-ins. It's like now because you're told don't ask, few times it won't ask. Then you see something wrong, you hit Control C, like putting a brake, and then you say, no, don't do this, try this instead. So this mode, as I said, it's only minutes. You cannot work, you cannot go to have coffee while this is happening, for example. And in this mode, a very good idea is to let the bot do something. And then while it is running a build, you go review the code. And so you need these pause moments where you introduce some pause moments into his work to say, after doing this, trigger a build. While the build is going on, you review the code, you come up with some comments. It's like giving review feedback. Then you go type that now don't do this, also do this. You update your cloud.md and you're making it ready. So while those are running, you're glancing at the terminal. You can also see the screen scroll and improve. Like you see something bad passing on the screen, then you say, no, don't do this. Or agent himself comes up with a question, you answer it. And so the task boundary is the review output. So while it finishes something, you take some time to review it and come up with the next task. So that is my version of FSD mode. The build wait times are the natural observation window. This mode requires you to do that because you have not set it up to do anything long. Okay. Any comment? Have people tried this, like trying to give a lot of prompts so that it can work longer? Omkar, Sid, any of you have tried this type?
I have tried plan, Akhil. I have planned with it. And once the plan is in place, I give it to work on it. It takes say 30 minutes or so. Finishes all tests, everything, and then says and if the test fail, it keeps updating the test, and that's how it does. But
What happens when tests pass?
so when test pass, it just says all test pass, my work is done, production ready, code is ready, is done.
But you are away watching a movie, so who'll tell it what to do next?
No, so what I've done is I have three in terminals, one doing one module, one doing another, like that.
Okay, so good. So this is the time. So the reason I brought up this question is this is the transition from FSD mode to this mode. I don't know, those of you who follow Simpsons, right? Simpson has this 8-year-old character called Ralph Wiggum. They have tried to show him very, uh, it should say naive. Every few minutes it says, I want to help. And it's an example of somebody who forgets but is very helpful. Okay. So Ralph Wiggum loop is a technique where, remember, we just did stop hook, that every time a prompt is generated, that is the time when agent actually stops working. You can introduce a stop hook, uses a stop hook, and in the stop hook, you can inject a prompt to say, read plan.md for the first task and start from there. So that's why I'm showing him running in a loop, that it will just keep doing one thing. So it'll say goal, what you're trying to achieve, how to test it, what is the state, and what is the promise. Once everything is done, it prints out a promise. So 5 elements that make it work. Implement phase 2 as per plan.md. Success is when all the tests pass. Okay. State externalization is achieved by update progress.md after each task. And then completion promises. Once it is done, print this out. So I'll come to the demo. While setting it up, you do this. And you also give it, don't spend more than this many iterations. Okay, otherwise, because this is like a fool, he'll just keep doing that forever. If you don't put it, it'll run it for overnight. It may not achieve anything. Okay, so the Ralph Wiggum loop adds 3 constraints. One is a clear finishing line. So, you say when will you be done? You also give it an externalized state. You also give a kill switch. Kill switch is, if the task is not done in this many iterations, then come out. Okay, so when does this approach work? It works when there is a well-defined task with a clear done criteria. If you give a vague goal like make it better, it's not going to work. But you give it a list of things, it'll do. Tests should exist to validate completion. State should be tracked in progress, because this is based on this guy. If you have followed the serial, he forgets. He enters the same room and asks the same question every time. Okay. So this thing started as like a community project. Somebody made a GitHub, and then Anthropic adopted it and they turned it into a plugin. I'll show you a quick demo of that. You can, if you're interested, you can read about this interesting article that tells how Ralph became so important. Okay, so let's go to 5. Yeah, so the exercises will keep becoming more and more difficult. So I request everybody to make sure that you go home and try. Whoever has Claude should try. Okay, so first thing is to understand how plugins work. So let's see from here. Okay, so slash plugin is a command. It works like any other marketplace, like VS Code has a marketplace, or different tools, right? So if you say installed, it shows you what is installed, right? So discover. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say search. Okay, search for Valve. Okay, so you see Ralph loop, Claude plugins official, interactive self-referential AI loop for iterative development. So I chose that from their marketplace. I'll say install for all or install for you, doesn't matter right now. It's just a demo. Okay, it says restart. So /exit. Okay, so far I've showed you, and you could have done the same thing by the command line directly by running this, but I also wanted to kind of tell everybody how to explore other plugins. You might find plugins for SQL, for other languages and things like that. Right? Okay. So let's first understand how the plugin works. Okay. Ralph Loop implements the Ralph Become technique, iterative development methodology. Core concept, same prompt is fed to the Claude repeatedly. Each iteration, it receives the same prompt, works on the task, modifies some files, tries to exit, stop hook, intercepts, and feeds the same prompt again. So that's why it's running in a circle constantly. So the reason I asked you, Sid, is what do you do? This is the problem that your bot will do A and it'll say it is done. Now, who will sit and give it instruction B? I know what Kashyap does is he uses WhatsApp. Some people use OpenClaw. But my problem is you still have to look at a screen to give that instruction. So, figure out a way by which when one thing is done, you immediately start second thing, because that's what we are discussing here, autonomy, right? So this is how it works. Okay, so we'll take a cooked up example. In this file, there are some to-dos. Okay. What is the file called? Source API. Okay, so this file has some, introduced to-dos, add pagination, add input, add something, right? Okay. Now we'll try to run the loop. So you found that there are these. I already ran this. Now I'm going to say and while that does that, let's study this. Okay, so it's important to understand. So I'm saying slash Ralph loop, which is the plugin, and the main of it is called Ralph loop itself. So here is the prompt. Implement all to-do items in this file. After each fix, run tests, and then update progress.empty after each change. Output the promise when all to-dos are resolved and tests pass. Okay, completion promise is to-dos done. So completion promise is how will it know that this is done? So when it cannot do this task, it will say to-dos done and max it. So for the workshop, because time is limited, I'll make max iterations fewer to show you the demo. So now what is expected is this Ralph loop will try to run this prompt, which will affect the code. Then it'll run the test. Test may pass or fail, but it'll come back and do exactly the same thing over and over till the time all to-dos are done. So, so if you had 2000 to-dos, it'll just keep on doing that. So while that is going on, we can see that it figured out 4 to-dos: pagination, input, duplicate, update. It will start with to-do 4. So on its own, by these to-dos, it made a task list. It's updating the code. As soon as it is done with one, it'll run the tests. Okay, it updated the tests for that. Now add the tests. So on my system, JTest is not installed. So it's trying to now.
Akhil, one question.
Yep.
This is happening in the same context, right? This is happening in your
Yep.
main context itself.
Yes. Yes.
So what we learned about skill and all that, that is not getting utilized by Ralph loop here.
It can be utilized by, it will be utilized by Ralph because it is the same conversation. it's the same exact same thing, right? It's nothing special actually. All it is doing is it is invoking a stop every time.
Mhm.
So see, it figured out that jest is not there. It's trying to do npm install, and it'll just keep on doing. The main thing is it does not stop at one thing. That's
So whatever comes out from the LLM, that, and I mean Claude from Claude LLM,
Hmm.
that if skills are available, it will invoke skill.
Yes.
If yeah, that's how it
If
is.
hooks are available, if skills are available, if MCP, everything that is in your system will be used in this. So your prompting can involve all of that.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So that means that we will have to make, like, what I know I registered what you're saying now. To come here, we have to make a system such a way that it is ready and doesn't break anything.
Hmm.
And it should have all of this setup ready.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean we don't have to wait. I mean I ran it on a different terminal earlier, and you can try it. It will figure. I mean the fact that Jest was not installed didn't occur to me because I kept cleaning my system. But in 10 or 15 minutes, it will basically be done. So see now Jest is running. So if I do Control O, I want everybody on the call to see this. I did not have Jest. This guy figured out. It installed Jest. It ran all these tests, right? All the 22 tests passed. So whenever you say controller, you can see thinking. So now one is done. As soon as one is done, it moved to do two. It update. So remember I said update progress.md. It updated progress.md. Now it's doing two. It'll continue doing that.
So, Akhil, in this prompt, is it good idea to add the when to compact, or should we run the subagent to clear this, which will not increase our context?
So very good point. This very good point. This is the reason why in this hierarchy, this is in the middle. So I have a slide which compares the three, right? So you brought up a very important point. So you got full marks in the tutorial, by the way, that this approach is going to fill up the context because it's running in a single context, right? I'm very happy that you said that, by the way. So what's going to happen is this thing will fill up the context. So next, what will happen? Let's just think through that. So I mean, this task is too small, it won't, but it, if it happens, it'll do compaction, right? And it'll restart. When it restarts, what will happen? The same thing will trigger again. So this is a good example of doing it when you have something which is 10 minutes to 1 hour. This cannot sustain for a over weekend run. So when I gave it with to do, you can do it in whichever way. Like for example, fix all this type of errors to that, or refactor all tests of this type to that type. You can come up with the example, but it will keep filling the context. It will keep compacting it, and it will keep trying it. So nothing beyond that, nothing better than that. So your
So
question was,
Akhil,
yeah, can we build clear? Yes, of course you can build clear inside that. Yeah.
yeah. So Akhil, sure. I mean, this is good, but if we use skills and if you use other tools that you started with, right?
Hmm.
Wouldn't that reduce the context to a bit, to whatever it is required to run this work?
It may, but that's what I'm saying. Because it's just running in a loop, it'll also keep hitting compaction. It will keep hitting compaction on its own. So it's the three tasks are done. Now it's at the and every single time it runs. Now, when you do it for lots of tasks, what will happen is even the compacted context may not be good for you. So you may achieve it slowly. Can we wait till the time I come to the comparison slide? Maybe it'll become clearer. But this is a very
Sorry.
interesting technique to to achieve that. So if you can come up with this prompt, you'll be able to make it do a lot of things without you going back. So you can take a break. Okay. And it also has the kill switch that don't do more than these iterations and come out. So that's what happened here. Oh, this time my other lint error wala thing also triggered. Okay. Here is a summary. 4231. What was done? These files were changed. Test went from 14 to 31, 17 new tests all passed. I was trying to show you that to-dos done is a way to come out of this loop, because once you set it up right in the prompt itself, I had said here output to-dos done, right? So in the prompt, I said when you're done, say to-dos done. And to the outside tool, I said completion promise is this. Okay, so basically the outer loop is waiting for this token to be printed to not call the stop hook again. So that's why it stopped. Now I'm back to here. We can check the context now. So this much got filled. Messages. But if this task was very long, it would come here, 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 then hit compaction. Then maybe up to this is fixed, then here, 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 and then hit compaction. So this will just keep happening. This task is simple, it finished, but not all. And anytime you want, you can say Ralph/cancel, it'll cancel the running loop. The 3 commands only. Okay, moving on. Now this is the third autonomous mode. This is the one that I'm most interested in. This is the architecture that survives context overflow. Each restart picks up where the last one left off. So this is a pattern that was there in multiple blogs, and finally Anthropic took and they adopted it, and this does not require any special thing. It just says you set up the environment, you generate a feature list.json, you create progress.md and git commit, right? And then what coding agent does, the important thing is it's not running within Claude. The loop is outside Claude. See carefully the screen. While true, do Claude minus P, put the agent.md, max turns 15, dangerously skip permissions, done. So now what's going to happen is it says, do this and exit. But the bash loop says, do it again. You keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. So this is how I would make a whole weekend of work, because this answered your question, Vijay. Every time Claude.exe exits, the context is collapsed, it's gone. There's no, right? What survived is what was written inside this. So, okay, so the design decisions that Anthropic took is they gave a human readable plan.md, like we all know, approach, phases, rationale. And they came up with this machine readable format of feature list.json. It is derived from the plan, but it's more machine oriented because it has pass, true, false, things like that. One feature per session. So the prompt says, pick up one feature from here, implement it. If it pass, then turn it to pass and exit. You remember in the last meeting, I was saying, once you're done with task, exit or clear. This is exactly what Vijay was trying to ask. Hard stop after one feature, it prevents the context exhaustion. The bot starts from scratch, picks up the next feature, implements it, picks up the next feature, implements it, and keeps on going. So you can, if you want, you can, instead of while true, you can say while I in 1 to 100 or something like that. Or you can come up with other. It doesn't even, if you can make it run for over a weekend, I don't care if it is overrunning also. Now, how does it differ from the Ralph Wiggum loop? This is in the overnight harness that we're just discussing, shell loop restarts the session. Here, the stop hook restarts the session. Here, it is fresh context each cycle. Here, it is the same context. This is good for hours to days, and this is good for minutes to an hour. this survives overflow. So context overflow happens because you're asking it to exit, it'll exit. It has no survival for overflow. So overflow is the situation. When you use this a lot, I would say once every week you'll run into a situation where even compaction is not possible because of back and forth. That last, it's like in your car's tank, the reserve fuel is not enough to bring you to the petrol pump. You have no choice, dead. So that can happen here, but it cannot happen here. So they make use of pre-tool use, post-tool use, whatever, and that's how it is. So we'll look at the lab to understand it more. In the meantime, you can queue up the questions. I'm sure your brains must be bursting by now. Should be. I hope they are. Hmm. No, just think of everything that you put in any MD file as it's a very soft instruction. There's no guarantee that bot will follow it or not follow it. I mean, that's my answer for now. Yeah. Okay. So we are in lab 6. I mean, just bear with me. We'll close at lab 7. That is the last lab. So I've added this branch instruction so that when you try it at home, you don't lose the output. So, after each of them, you can commit code and move back to the branch. So first thing is, so far we have not looked at the plan.md. We can now look at it. So plan.md has feature, search, pagination, archiving. API supports basic CRUD. Now something in phase. So this we discussed in the last workshop also, right? Define phases like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Implement get, then implement this test, then integration test, then blah, 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 right? All of this. Okay, now let's look at the feature list.md, feature list.json. So this is what we generated by going through the planning phase. We came up with this plan. Then you chat with the bot to generate feature list. So this is a feature. This is described, and it has a kind of a binary state whether this features test pass or fail. Pass or fail. So right now to begin with, I said pass false. Okay. So these are phases, pass, fail. Now explore the agent prompt. This is where the important thing is. So you're saying you're building features for this. Your work persists across the context window via git commits. State file is plan.md has this. You're just telling that what is your loop? Your loop is read this to understand because this feature list is like a fit test. You know what is FIT, fitness or fit test? That whether a feature exists or not is defined by this passing or failing. So if you can do get this, then you're passing. Okay. But where is the specification? So specification is here in this case. Plan.md. If all features pass, if all features have passes true, output all features done and stop. Okay, read progress.md and recent git log to understand current state. So because it starts from scratch, it has to look at the git history. It has to look at current progress. We can read progress.md also. Okay, I should probably move right so that you can see side by side. This is easy to read now. Okay, this is important part. Read progress and the recent git history. Implement exactly one feature, write code in SRC, write tests here, run npm test to verify. When test pass, update this. When test pass, say passes true for that feature. Update this, commit After completing one feature, output session done and stop immediately. Do not continue to the next feature, the outer. So, okay. And then only one feature, some more thing about project. So this is the prompt that you're giving over and in this, it's basically a clever trick that the progress is tracked outside, the features are tracked outside, and the feature success is tracked outside. So over loops, this will be the same, right? That is the clever trick here. Okay, so now to do it here, I have written these two harness scripts. Let's see what does this do. So for this, I don't need Claude. So I'm going to say /exit. So now I'm on bash prompt, right? This is not Claude. Okay, so script is very simple. It says Claude -p cat this max turns 15 dangerously skip. And if at the after every run, it just runs this test to check inside feature list. If there are no passes, then all features complete. And if you do Control C, then it stops. Sorry, you put a stop file. So next step is to just run it, right? I think I never run it on Git bash, so I also don't know whether it will work or not. So just do you get the why we are running this? That this is going to in a loop invoke Claude. Every time it will give this prompt, and the prompt is created in a clever fashion that will keep reading features, keep updating them. This is the best way to make it run long term. And I have put all this kind of this is just my work to make sure we can see what's happening. So it says starting new context window. Then this will run. It will finish one feature. So all we have to do is to keep watching what's changing here. That file feature list.json. And another interesting thing to see is here. So so far we were so chatty, but now what's happening is it's all happening. Once one is done, this will come here. It won't grab. It'll go back to the loop, and you'll see starting context window again. So while this is going on, are there any questions? Does this look daunting or does it look interesting?
It's interesting. I think we can use the same approach for I mean, I have the $20 one, which where instead of context, it goes out of session. I mean, there is a limited session for the token, right? I guess I can use this so that after 4 hours, when I get token, it should start again.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
it'll keep exiting. It'll say that your session will start after 3 hours. So your loop will run through, it'll go very fast because Claude will keep exiting. So see, okay. Feature completed. So tag filtering endpoint is now done. Okay. Added 2 new test cases. All 33 tests pass. Committed this. This is updated. So let's go check whether it got updated. So see that false became true. So now the next loop is going to skip over this and pick up the next feature. And then, this one took probably 3 minutes. In 3 minutes later, that will be done. And then this will be done. And then this will be done. And finally, everything will be done. Now, the reason this is good is it is highly scalable. You can make this file very long, right? Not only that, you can have another bot generate this file constantly. So let's go through the material while this is running. So we already saw that starting new context, it does all this. And then that session exited and then next and next, right? It'll do 4 times. So max turns 15 is a Claude feature which says don't do more than this many round trips. Like if some feature is very complicated, you can put it. If it's a way to make sure that you don't burn too many tokens. Why dangerously skip? Because in this blind mode, it's headless mode, right? There's no way to get answers. So you see my files are changing, new tests are coming, new things are moving, and very soon it'll finish one more feature.
Akhil, this is maybe a base question, but when we write, okay, so when a problem statement comes up, right? Like we plan and everything and we give it to do, right? And most of the times we review back what is happening. This code is getting reviewed every time by a person, right? Like me, I have a plan, I tell it to execute, it will generate code. Once the code is generated, I go back and see whether the tests are right. Sometimes the tests are bogus. Like it generates tests. Have you figured that? I mean, have you faced that? Like just to make the thing pass, it will write some bogus test. And
Yeah, that keeps happening. Yeah. So that's why in all the autonomous ones, I have written that the human review is important. So this guy should only generate pull request. You have two choices after that. You can use another bot to assess the quality, like completely different bot to assess the quality, or you can use a human reviewer. Those are the only two choices. No matter how much you say this guy is going to do dirty jobs, since it went to 37 test cases, right? Once we explore them, half of them will be totally useless. It'll be testing unnecessary boundary conditions, meaningless. It'll say, okay, let me try tag 1, tag 2, and now also try tag 2, tag 5. Some of them will make no sense to you, actually. And I don't even care.
Yes, I will share the screen.
The reason I don't care is that some test is better than no test.
Okay. Okay, but if we give it examples, right, then probably it can.
Yeah.
We have multiple examples saying this is how you should write, this is what I'm expecting.
Yeah. So let's have this quick discussion about. So I mean, this is running. I don't want to take time on that. So we are back to here. So now you have 4 modes, not 3. Okay. Manual REPL is what I did in the last, right? The regular way that you just interact with it. It reads and does, and then it stops, and then you give it to the next thing. I gave you the FSD one where you try to still look, but you try to create the prompt in a way that don't ask this, or you give some more permissions, right? But that's very stressful because you have to keep looking what's happening. This is the next one where you have some bounded, very clear criteria. You can go away. You can say, okay, while it is writing all the tests or while it is fixing all the to-dos or whatever, right? You can go away. You can, go buy milk, make coffee, and come back. It will be working. But the danger you run is it is running in the same context. It will run out of context. And Vijay, don't worry about the $20 plan problem because I think that's easiest to solve. You can go to $100 plan or $200 plan. That because if that gives us speed. So don't try to solve that problem. I'm saying that solve a problem which is worth solving. This is the one which is the overnight harness. With this, you can get more success because I mean, it's a function of how good you make this prompt, by the way. The agent prompt.md, you can do more things here. Like right now, I'm giving a binary state, right? In one project, I tried true, false, and blocked. So blocked is that in the given budget, it could not achieve the task. So for that thing, it will say blocked and move to the next one. So I'm just saying, don't see, I'm trying to do this limited 2-3 hour workshop to kind of ignite the passion, right? But don't take this as the final form can be more complicated than this. You have, like Omkar said, right? You have to add more things to this approach so that it can be valuable to you. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Because in the current implementation, what's going to happen is the way it is currently written, the harness has max turns and it will leave this as false. So the next iteration will again pick it up. So then it will be stuck in a loop, right? See, because it is just dumb code, it's just launching this thing. It'll again come back here and run it. It has no history that it has already attempted. So you can say, if you cannot achieve it, at least make it blocked so that the next generation does not pick it up. Hmm. I think this was answered in the last. This was answered in the last meeting. That spend a lot of time in plan.md while planning phase. Remember, I said all your experience counts here. So the only way, I mean, you understand the concept, right? Garbage in. So this time it says reached maximum turns. So this task could not be done. Now it will be stuck in a loop. I mean, this is my code. I know it. So what I was trying to say is garbage in, garbage out, right? So you can say write very good code without telling what very good code looks like. It won't do anything. So the answer to your question is during the planning phase, go to extreme lengths of arguing back with it so that what comes back has everything that you need. Once these descriptions become solid, then you get good output. You try to describe tests also to the next level, that not only just test this, but test that also. Your experience is the key. Yes, Raj, by experience, you will know that, I'm just saying in video example that this works for main and baseline, but does not work for high profile. So you introduce this thing, make sure you test for all three profiles. Then you say, make sure you test it for files longer than 1 hour. The more you put, the more it will do. In the past, we could not do each of them because we were the limit, right? We had only so much typing time. Yeah. So what happened is in that 15 attempts, it could not do, but the code was modified. So this is another thing to learn. Then it picked up the same task because it was half done. It could finish it in the second. So this is how all features got done. And okay. Again, same thing. Please read. I've tried. I've tried to document a lot. Okay, so we are done with autonomy. So I gave you 3 examples of autonomy, right? The last 2 were, I think, the most interesting one. Now, I think Sid brought up that you use multiple. So this is an answer to that. So now, so far, what we are trying to do is we were trying to make one agent run very long to achieve something, right? But then how do you further scale? So you can think of parallelisms, right? Parallelism is one agent writes UI code, another agent writes backend code, another agent writes blah blah code, right? So how do you do that? So 3 models here. One is called sub agents. You saw a glimpse of sub agent in the first demo, right? In one terminal, one conversation, you ask a question and it silently spawns helpers that do work in parallel and give you a combined answer. So example is, research. Who's the coordinator? Agent himself is the coordinator. This feature, at least in Claude, is right now in perfectly stable state. I'll show a demo of that. In the first week of February, they launched this concept of agent teams, which was a copy of this. Kashyap, you remember Tmux orchestrator that I was trying to experiment in August? So they noticed it and they've turned Tmux orchestrator into agent teams. But currently there are so many bugs in that you start it and it fails, like the communication between agents fails. I can describe the technique, but I cannot show you the demo right now. This demo I didn't want to set up because anyhow, this is now obsolete in 6 months. So this idea is In an agent team, you have one Claude instance as the lead agent, which is like a project manager giving work. And then you have a UI programmer, a backend programmer, a tester, a DevOps engineer. Each of them are running, and the lead agent gives work, asks for status. Status is given back. Based on the status, task is, so it's like, because UI is done, let's finish backend. Because both are done, let's start testing. Because all are done, let's try deployment with DevOps engineer. So there are these 4 or 5 roles, and they keep passing text to each other to progress. It works in, I mean, whatever I did with Tmax Orchestrator in my early days worked, but they have tried to turn it into a feature. Currently, it's very immature. You can see it was only released like 2 weeks ago. The third one, I think, is anybody can realize it very easily. That's what Sid is doing. That use separate terminals. Like in your machine, you can have 2 folders, one for UI, one for backend. Give each of them a different Git branch and say, you do this while you do that, while you do that. Each of them come back and commit. And you put a third one to say, after these 2 branches are, after these 2 Git issue tasks are done, then take this code and put it into an integration branch, run all the tests, and deploy to sandbox. So you can basically, this same multi-user workflow, you can realize yourself by just using prompts in 3 different terminals or 3 different machines for that matter. Any comments so far? Okay, so to prove this, they gave this example in, they started 16 Claude agents to rewrite the C compiler. So it says write the C compiler from scratch. They divided work between 16 of them. You write the lexer, you write the parser, you write this, you write that. And the test for that was extreme. That C compiler should be able to compile the Linux kernel. So they set the bar too high. Okay. What they got is that in 2000 sessions with roughly $20,000 worth of tokens, they could get a new C compiler made. This is the same loop that we just experimented. Exactly the same loop. While true, do this. Okay, so comment. Yes, yes, and the Rust compiler is based on an old C compiler. Yeah. Okay, so let's just quickly see my simple demo setup to show how subagents work. So this is the lab 7. So when you need multiple things investigated simultaneously, for example, you want to do a security review, a test coverage check, a to-do audit, you can do all of them sequentially and you have to type or you have to create plan. But what I've learned now, the new way of doing things is use sub-agents. Otherwise, you are engaged. See, the focus of this show today has been you should not engage. You should try to disengage from them. Then only you can get scale. So the problem is by the time you finish the third investigation, your context is bloated. Agent has forgotten details. Sub-agent solves this. So let's try doing this. Okay, so I'm going to paste this long prompt. I need 3 things done in parallel. Review this for security issues. Check if our test coverage is above 80%. Search for any to do. Use sub-agents for each. You see this tree running 3 agents. First one is doing review, second one is doing batch something, third one is doing explore, search for to do, check for test coverage, review. Okay, we can do Control O to see more. So it's basically each of them. So one is trying to do the security review, looking for some poor code. This is trying to run test with coverage. Remember, we had test colon coverage. This is trying to search for all the to-dos, right? Control O. So this is the summary. So basically all of them got done in parallel. The thing is context itself will not get bloated. If I say slash context, I should have run it before to show, but let's see how big it became. So it's still at 13%. So these 3-4 things happen in parallel. A lot of back and forth happened. But finally, what came to the main context is just this thing that there are 4 to-dos. You remember the 4 to-dos that we solved through another method, right? It also says there are no fix me's, no hacks. The security review and search align to do on this, blah, blah. I mean, the output doesn't matter. And it says the test coverage output is this much. So what does it tell you? This is another way. So 3 things happen in parallel. First of all, it is parallelism. So things can move faster. Second is it does not bloat your context. Questions? This is literally the end of it. So if there are any questions, I can answer. Then I'll come to the last one. Huh? Okay. No, there's 2 more slides. You cannot go yet. Okay. So basically the key lessons from this is the reason I spent all this time is I don't want you guys to worry about orchestration. I feel that the orchestration should come from the tool vendor. We are going to pay Claude. So if they give the Rolf loop or whatever they give, we should not worry about that. We should just use what technique they have given. But try to invest in test that in our code, there should be enough test to make sure that old code doesn't break. We should have patterns so that new tests can be built by this. Okay. The other thing is design for agents, not humans. Extensive README files, progress files, and grep friendly logs. So logs I didn't cover here, but it's an important one that as you go to use this technique for debugging and figuring out issues, logs are very. Mansi, can you go on mute? Okay, minimize test output in context. So things which are like back and forth, avoid them to bring into context by using this sub-agent idea. Okay, handle the time blindness. So agent will happily spend hours running tests, but probably you don't want, you just want test passed or failed. So that's why you use a sub-agent. Okay, so summary. You came with some ideas and now you're leaving with a full stack in your workflow. Like now you're graduating out of this, right? You should be doing rethinking your architecture. Make sure your secrets move to CI/CD. You have branch protection. Think of using sandbox and hooks. Okay, and then I gave the security checklist. Make sure all of them are ticked. Then worry about knowledge. 6-layer of memory hierarchy, you remember in the beginning. Then we talked about learning extraction, that every time you face a challenge, you say, how can I do better by improving? So it'll relook at the conversation, make a suggestion, update it. Wherever you see everybody in the team is getting stuck, immediately jump in and build a new skill and share that skill. Invest in MCP server. So for my, like when I was working on the Apra Labs license manager, one big problem I faced is it'll create ugly looking web pages, which I did not like. And I used to take screenshots and then describe in words what to do. After doing it for 2, 3 days, I became super irritated and I wrote the snapshot taker, and then I changed this thing. I started saying UI guide, that all the tables should be in the middle, nothing should have more than 80 characters. I started giving it things, and I used to append this line to say, after you are done, take a snapshot yourself and evaluate and try to improve the finesse. I mean, I have some verbiage. It's like you give it eyes, it'll look. So this is very important, that in my case, I felt that that MCP server for taking snapshots did a lot of good job, and I'm continuing to use it every day. This entire slideshow, all this beautiful colors and all that are because I made it see its own work. So, so architecture and knowledge, right? Then operate. Think of what mode makes most sense. You know, always start here. Think of this. Aim at this. This is where you will make maximum buck. And in between, wherever possible, try to delegate to sub. Like I have this bad habit that I will try to do my Git interaction, my everything in the same context. But after doing this and talking to you guys, I've realized that I should start using this sentence to say, use a sub agent to analyze all changes in my workspace, use a sub agent to come up to commit and push, because I don't want my context to get that. So learn that as a habit. Then you scale by using independent agents or this other technique that I said. So each of these layers in the architecture help your skill plus AI, faster code generation, structured planning, right? Full memory stack, I just described it today. Autonomy model, I described it today. Parallel thing, right? I'm not going to say what multiplier because you guys are going to say. And this is again warning about the safety. And then I request everybody to follow every homework, all the thinking exercises. I will add everybody to the Agentic AI Slack, and then you can ping me and ask any questions. This slide does not need any discussion. It's for you to click on these links and read. We can have 5 minutes of any other Q&A. I mean, I think I did better this time, right? Instead of 2 hours, I took 3 hours, so only 50% more. Okay, some people never spoke, so I want to hear from them. Was this useful? So let's start from Deepak. Any comment?
Super useful. Definitely way useful than the first one. I had the idea already about the first one, but this one was very useful because at least for me and probably multiple people, they have not. I mean, we have been using GitHub Copilot, but not Claude, and most of the things are very detailed. And since there is a plan to adopt to Claude, that will be useful. Also, I want to be clear that the other things which you already told, I have to go through again, make sure that I do hands-on completely to make it as a practice. So that I have to do to understand it end to end. One question, since I'm speaking anyway, is that uh, uh, I have already realized that at some point we have to start pushing .md files, which is used to create the plans in the repo, which also means we will have extra MD files which should not be built. I just wanted to tell that we have.
I didn't understand that. So this technique requires markdown files to be committed, and we should commit them. There's no problem
Yeah.
with that.
Yes.
But you can create a designated area like docs. You just from an organization point of view, like, because in the early days, I used to end up with 20 different MD files. And I figured out that if you put one line that put all MD files in /docs, then it does a good job. So this technique, because this whole knowledge section, right, if you remember, is completely based on creating MD files to do A, B, or C, right? Finally, end of the day, I mean, somewhere I wrote, right? here state survives. So the final your state survives into this MD files only. So there's no issue in committing them. Short answer.
Yeah, yeah. The plan I was going to pitch to the people who, blue box people mostly, that very soon we have to have this planning, that plan, these empty files, even though we are pushing, should not be built as in code. And also, few things I have realized. For example, we are adding many UTs and all. We have to separate the pipeline in a way that just because we are adding UTs, it should not take 1 hour or 2 hours just to build the code. So few things which we need to do because of these side effects of our this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's also in short, it is super useful. I have to go through it again and start practicing. I'm still in, I mean, few weeks ago, I bought this Claude plan. It's myself. For office, we are still using the GitHub Copilot, and many things are very specific to Claude. So I will start practicing.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to speak or has a question? Otherwise, I'll close. I'll actually stop presenting here.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
just like to, I don't have any questions, but I'd just like to really appreciate this markdown approach, because not only for the reason of maintaining context, but through my planning phases and all, and sometimes I would want to give this similar context to different agents, and I want to see what the output is. So compressing it down in a markdown file really helps me to put my context at one place, have that markdown file, and see the outcomes through different agents. So I think that is one thing that I found very useful, and something that I had been doing since our last call, since our last workshop.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Yes, Nitin. Hmm. Uh, Let me see. So I don't think in that task I did any skills. The only skill I used there was probably the Opera Pipes DevOps skill. That's a very large skill. I mean, one thing you should definitely do is from the links study how that skill works. Skill can be any large. It doesn't really matter. The beauty of the skill is that the top section, which is called as front matter, is only read till the time you invoke it. So your skill can be very large, but you'll have to split it into tens of files where each file should not have more than 200 lines. Right. So the progressive exposure, right? So if you, I mean, I don't want to go there, but if you go to the Opera Pipes DevOps skill, it already has, I think, 8 different sections that how to do CUDA, how to do Jetson, how to do Windows, how to do Mac, how to deal with VCPKG. So when you are navigating the DevOps space, in that case, it will first apply the basic techniques to figure out which build is failing. Once it knows which build is failing, then it will go to troubleshooting that .md. So for example, troubleshooting.macOS.md. So it's like a tree navigation, that because you descend into the tree, there is a lot of knowledge that you're not looking at because it's not needed. So I think skill files can be any large, but you have to keep creating a multi-layered tree to investigate. Because if you dump everything in one single skill file, then it's of no use, because whenever it is invoked, it'll eat up your context. Did I answer your question? So tree hierarchy is the important thing there. As your skill becomes bigger. Yeah. And I feel this thing actually, Kashyap and Sid and all the senior members here, I think it's very important that all the senior members think of the areas where skills are required, because that is a way of you creating a brain dump for younger members. right? Because you know way more than them. So you have a skill, right? If you can convert that skill into text and stick it into the Git, and so that their agents pick on your skill. Don't expect the skill to come from junior members to you. Try to push it down. Just the literal meaning of skill is right. Skill will always flow from Kashyap to Nitin to, let's say, Prince, right? Everybody agrees? Okay. Anybody else? Last call. No. Okay. Thank you everyone for listening patiently. I appreciate everybody taking so much time, but I'm sure it will be useful. And all your doubts, keep putting in that agentic AI chat group so that others can also know. And if somebody is not in the chat group, please let me know. I'll add them. Slack channel. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye, Akhil. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.